Well, this morning, I thought I would talk about the yes buts, which Elka mentioned yesterday. The Germans spontaneously used to come, aber. The classical yes but came from Albert Einstein when Niels Bohr and his group of scientists presented Albert Einstein with the theory of uncertainty, the basis of which, as I understand it as a non-scientist, is that any moment out of the ocean of possibilities, which possibility will collapse into an actuality, no one knows. That, I think, is the basis of the theory of uncertainty, quantum mechanics. So Albert Einstein went through the theory very critically and finally admitted to them that he could find no flaw in the theory. Yes, the theory was perfect, but I cannot accept the implication that God plays dice with the universe. Then Niels Bohr explained to him, God does not play dice with the universe. We think God plays dice with the universe because we do not have the full information which God has. So what is uncertainty for us is not uncertainty for God. So, the teaching, same kind of reaction is evoked. So what is the basis of the teaching? The basis of the teaching is that the functioning of manifestation, in the functioning of manifestation, which we call life as we know it, nothing can happen unless it is the will of God. And when I say God, as I've repeatedly said, I mean not an all-powerful entity connected with the manifestation, but the very source, one without the second, from which everything has emerged. So, the basis of the teaching is nothing can happen unless it is the will of God. And God exercises His will through every human being by having created each human being with such design or programming that the human being cannot but react to any input which God puts in, like a computer. So the input which God puts in is a thought over which no human being has control, or something is seen or heard, any of the senses. In other words, the basis is no human being has any control over what thought is going to come next, or what he will see next, or what he will hear next, or any of the senses. That is the input. The brain reacts to that input, and what comes out, the reaction of the brain, is the output over which the human being has no control. That is the basis of the teaching. So anything that happens, happens because that is the reaction of the brain to an input strictly according to the programming. And the programming means the unique genes plus environmental conditioning, over neither of which has the human being had any control at all. That is the basis of this teaching. To that there are yes buts. The first one being, the theory seems acceptable. It seems logical. But the first objection usually is, does the teaching not lend itself to fatalism? You'll be surprised how often this question is asked, especially in India. This is fatalism, which is the basis of working of the Indians and many Easterners. Fatalism. So I asked them, and somebody said, what do you really mean by fatalism? Again, would you believe it? Hardly anybody is able to tell me what he means, he or she means by fatalism. It's a label which is attractive. What do you mean by fatalism? Then I tell them, is it possible that what you mean by fatalism is this? If nothing is in my control, why should I do anything? Why should I not lie in bed all day and do nothing? Would you mean by fatalism this? Many of them promptly jump to the solution and say, yes. Why should I do anything at all? Why shouldn't I lie in bed all day and do nothing? My answer to that is very simple. Try it. And when you say do nothing, you're thinking of doing something physically. But the doing is not just physical. Any action can be physical or mental. So try to lie in bed all day and not think about anything. The energy inside the body-mind organism will not let you be idle for any length of time. So that is out of the question. So fatalism, if it means not doing anything, is out of the question. In any case, the teaching does not say that you cannot exercise your free will. I've always said the free will is there. In fact, life will not go on until each human being exercises what he considers is his free will. So the answer every time is, do whatever you like, whatever you think you should do. So the exercise of the free will is not prevented by the basis of this teaching. All it means is you decide to do something. How many times in your personal experience have you found that what you decide to do happens? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Therefore, the happening of your decision is not in your control. With that understanding, you don't stop making decisions. You continue to make your decisions. And how do you make your decisions? They are made according to your programming, which is the conditioning which you have received at home, in school, in college, in university, in society, in church or temple. All of it together tells you what you think you should do or should not do. And based on that will be your decision. But that decision may or may not turn out into an action. You have no control. And if the action has happened, what consequences that action will have is also not in your control. So, this fatalism point is quickly laid to rest. Then comes the question of responsibility. Another big but. He said, how can the world function if each human being does not take responsibility for his action? And my answer is, that the world will continue to function exactly as it has continued to function so far, whether anyone accepts its teaching or not. The world will continue to function. So there is the question of responsibility. What do you really mean by responsibility? Responsibility, the word responsibility is, according to me, connected directly with the consequences. I do an action and the society will hold me responsible for the consequences of my action. So the responsibility refers to consequences. And as I said before, you can take an action, you can make a decision to take an action. The action happens. But the consequences could be entirely opposite to what you have anticipated. So even the consequences are truly not in your control. So where lies this question of responsibility? Your responsibility lies only in this, that you will make a decision, which again will be according to the programming or environmental conditioning, with the expectation that certain consequences will happen. But in fact, from experience, we have found that the consequences will not necessarily be those which you have expected. So the teaching does not prevent you from being responsible, from taking your responsibility seriously. In fact, that will be part of what I say, do what you like. But there is a certain depth in it. The depth of it comes into this. If a person is programmed to take things lightly, to take things easily, not to waste too much time on making a decision. The person agrees, I can't make quick decisions. In fact, quite often, because I am not able to make decisions, I toss a coin. I keep a coin with me. I cannot make decisions quickly. So where does this responsibility lie? In other words, what I am saying is, whether you are a responsible person or not, itself depends on the programming. And if you are programmed to be a responsible person, because this teaching tells you nothing can happen unless it is the will of God, and therefore whatever happens is not in your control, will this teaching change the programming? Even if whatever happens is according to the will of God, if you are programmed to take decisions with a responsible attitude, how can you give up that attitude? You are programmed to it. So simply because of the teaching, you will not cease to be a responsible person if you are programmed to be a responsible person. You see? So this yes but, again, is quickly liquidated. Now, the objections are raised by the ego, by the mind intellect. The mind intellect raises these questions because basically this teaching means that the ego really cannot do anything in what happens, except give you the feeling that you are the doer. That is why the objections are usually by the mind intellect, which is the same thing as the ego. And sometimes it does happen more often than you might imagine. The teaching goes to the heart, not through the mind intellect, but direct to the heart. He said, this is so, this is it. So these yes buts don't arise, and yet life goes on exactly as before. So the objections are raised by the mind intellect or the ego. One of the main objections raised by the ego are this. I do things because I am motivated. I want to achieve something. And if this sense of achievement, this motivation is not there, how can the world progress? All the achievements of the human being, of the human race, have been because of motivation. And if you say nothing happens unless it is the will of God, what happens to the principle of motivation? My answer to that is, it is not really motivation which has brought about what the human race considers its achievements or progress, but that those achievements and that progress had to happen according to the will of God. And for those achievements to happen, whatever was necessary was provided. Again, to refer to Albert Einstein, he had the humility along with his intelligence to realize and to say that the equation E is equal to mc square, which is the basis of the theory of relativity, the equation came to me from outside. The equation came to me from outside, which is the real thing. In other words, what he said was, or my interpretation of it is this: for better or for worse, it was God's will that the human race should have the basic theory of relativity on which came all the supposed progress, including the atomic and nuclear bombs. So, for the theory of relativity to be given to mankind, I repeat, for better or worse, the source or God created a body-mind organism with such a design, with such a programming, that that body-mind organism only was able to receive the equation. The equation, as he himself said, he didn't create the equation. The equation was always there. Only thing is, there was no body-mind organism with such a programming as to be able to receive it. The equation was always there. So, because the further progress had to be there, the theory of relativity had to be given, and for the theory of relativity to be given, a suitable body-mind organism was created. And Albert Einstein, I doubt, was motivated by anything. The motivation really lies in the programming. And if there is motivation in the programming, no power on earth can take it away. So it is not the motivation which motivates an individual from doing what he is doing, from achieving what he is achieving. But the achievement would have happened anyway, and it is the ego says, they are my achievements. Whereas Albert Einstein was humble enough to say, the equation came to me from outside. So the motivation also falls by the wayside. The question of motivation. Now, about the achievements of the human race. What have the achievements of the human race really achieved? Has the human race on the whole, the average human being, is the average human being now happier than if some years ago? I would doubt it. Recently there was a report in the Indian papers, I don't know if they probably not come in the other papers, which are very interesting. Let me read out to you. The heading of the brief report is this: Bangladeshis are world's happiest people. Bangladeshis are the world's happiest people. The report is from London. Based on a research done not by a riff-raff society but done by the London School of Economics. The research was done by the London School of Economics. And this is what it says. Would you believe it? Bangladesh is the happiest nation in the world. The United States, on the other hand, is a sad story. It ranks only 46th in the World Happiness Survey. That's way behind India, the 5th happiest place in the world. And others, including Ghana and Latvia, Croatia and Estonia. Research led by London School of Economics professors into the link between personal spending power and the perceived quality of life has conclusively proved that money can buy everything but happiness. The study revealed that people in Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world, derive far more happiness from their small income than, for example, the British, 32nd on the list, do from their relatively large bank balances. In fact, people in most rich countries, including Austria, Netherlands, Switzerland, Canada, Japan and others, I don't know why Germany has been excluded. These others are much unhappier than their poorer counterparts in countries like the Dominican Republic and Armenia. Most unfortunate, however, are Russians and people in some other parts of the former Soviet Union. They are neither rich nor happy. Indicates the World Happiness Survey. Slovenia, Lithuania, Slovakia, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Bulgaria and Moldova follow the United States in the list to bring up the rear. Now this is interesting. The study shows that although the British have twice as much money to spend in real terms compared with 40 years ago, although the British have twice as much money to spend in real terms compared with 40 years ago, their perceived quality of life has not improved. Earlier surveys revealed that many Britons thought money could bring happiness. The new study shows that such a link still exists in poor countries because a small increase in income can mean large improvements in lifestyle. The new study shows that such a link between money and happiness still exists in poor countries because a small increase in income can mean large improvements in lifestyle. However, beyond a certain income level, that direct relationships break down. Beyond a certain income level, direct relationship breaks down. According to the research, happiness in rich countries now is far more dependent on close personal relationships, good health, and job satisfaction. I thought that was an interesting. So, any more yes buts? Yes. Philip?
Yes, Herr Raméš.
Yes.
Kann ich es in Deutsch sagen und du übersetzt? Zuerst im Überbau bin ich mit der Lehre einverstanden, ich jetzt.
In principle, he can agree with your teaching.
But
ich fühle mich getrennt von der Einheit. Also ich lebe in einer bestimmten Gesellschaft und habe eine bestimmte Verantwortung.
He's saying he lives in a surrounding, in society, and feels responsible for certain things.
So meine Entscheidungen haben bestimmte Konsequenzen.
So my decisions have certain consequences.
Also ob ich mit 100 durch die Fußgängerzone fahre.
So whether I'm driving with 100 kilometers per hour through the passenger area.
Oder ich entscheide mich zum Beispiel mit der Person zusammenzuleben oder mit der, und das hat dann Konsequenzen wieder für die Kinder. Es gibt eine Gesetzmäßigkeit.
Or I decide to live together with this person or with another one, to have children. All these things, they have consequences.
Und zwar bestimmte Konsequenzen, es ist eine Gesetzmäßigkeit da.
And he says there is an order, there is a law of cause and effect, he feels.
So, was soll ich mit den Gefühlen machen, die auftauchen, die bestimmte Konsequenzen haben, die doch in meiner Hand liegen?
What should I do with the feelings which will have consequences when I feel that I can decide upon these feelings?
Weil nach der Lehre habe ich ja keine Entscheidungsmöglichkeit und in meinem Raum habe ich eine.
He says, according to the teaching, there is no free will to decide, but in
meinem Entscheidungsraum habe ich eine
yeah,
Verantwortlichkeit und es hat Effekte.
but in my surrounding, I have the possibility to decide, and therefore I have to bear the consequences.
Was soll ich tun?
What shall I do?
so, Mark, what is the question?
I don't know. What shall I do?
Is that the question? What shall I do? Answer is, do whatever you like, my friend. Do whatever you like. Do whatever you think you should do, according to your sense of responsibility. Nothing prevents you from doing exactly what you think you should do, with a sense of responsibility. Evaluating the consequences as you estimate them. That is all you can do. You evaluate the consequences. Based on that, you take a decision. What else can you do? So whether the consequences will be good for you or not will depend on the destiny, God's will, and the destiny of the body, mind, organism.
But it can, for other person, it could be good or bad.
That's
for
right.
Example,
That's right.
For example, for the children, it can be good.
So,
or
therefore,
bad.
whether the parents are good or not will depend on the destiny of the children. Whether the
But
parents are good or not.
It depends on me.
No, it depends on the destiny of the children. If it depends on you, you do whatever you think you should do for the good of the children. Nothing prevents you from doing that. Do whatever you think you should do in the interests of your children. That is all you can do, isn't it? What prevents you from doing it? Do, I repeat, do whatever you think you should do in the interests of your children whom you love. That's all you can do. But if you mean, how can you guarantee that the children will get what you expect them to get? That is not in your control. That depends on the destiny of the children. So what I am saying is, you may do your best for the good of the children. But what finally happens to the children depends on not what you decide to do, but on the destiny of the children themselves.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Philip.
There is a very contemporary yes but, which concerns the programming. You see, genetically, very soon, the genes are going to be tackled and altered. And this will alter the genetic programming, seemingly. Already on the market, psychologically, there are techniques which do alter the conditioning. You're familiar with yeast, that's one of them, and there are others who actually deliver what they say they are going to deliver. And this alters the conditioning. So apparently, the programming is tackling itself. And on the whole, I understand it makes absolutely no difference. But, maybe you just could go a little bit into that, because apparently it gives an escape route to the mind. Because, the reaction is saying, well, after all, I will alter my programming, or it is possible for, you see, so.
Go back to the basics, Philip.
Yes.
What is the basic? Will it happen? It will happen only if it is the will of God. Otherwise, all your genetic efforts will go down the drain with a lot of money.
Sure. Sure.
But if it is supposed to be successful with whatever consequences, that also will be the will of God.
Absolutely. But it's just a new possibility, because
Sure.
a few years ago, it was absolutely radically impossible to
That's
touch the
right.
genes,
Yes.
and there was no successful approach
Yes.
to the conditioning.
Yes.
It just happens that, as you say,
Philip, at one point of time, the physicists said it is impossible for a heavy object to go into the air.
sure,
At one time, they said that. In other words, flying was impossible. The knowledge at that time said flying, heavy object going, is impossible, but it's happened.
yes.
So whatever is considered impossible now could surely happen.
Yes.
That is the will of God.
But you see, it's an interesting perspective, because concerning the altering of the conditioning and the behavior, it seems that you know, through the will of God, I mean, this is the intention and the mechanics of it, there are now ways to have some body, mind, organism tally that will of God. So they may, and erroneously sometimes they believe that they are in charge, you know, they are made to believe that, and that's the technique of the thing. And then, you know, they're made to believe that they're gearing the boat in the right direction. But it's just that, you know, it so happens that their intention seems to tally with the intentions of the source, you see. So there is a modification there because there seems to be some kind of mechanics devised by source to have some alterations for a behavior to tally its will. You see what I mean?
No.
No. So it seems that there is a closer links between the will of source and the activity of this human body mind.
Closer. The whole activity of the human race is according to the will of God at any moment, in the past, now, and in the future.
Yes, but you see, when you say that, it's a matter of rhetoric, so of dialectics. But you see, when you say that,
yes,
it's like you're talking from the viewpoint of a strategy. You see, very often, you know, I have a slight misunderstanding coming up, and then I spot it. But sometimes, because in the same sentence, in the same address, you're talking at first from the viewpoint of, we could say, the strategy of source, and then you will talk of the tactics, you see, of the mechanics. Because, of course, source has an intention, and overall, all there is source.
Philip, strategy and tactics are words used only by the human being. For the source has already done it. The whole movie is already there. The whole movie is already there. And according to my concept, the script has been, the consciousness of the source or God has written the script, has produced and directed the movie, is playing all the characters in the movie, and it is the source or consciousness of God who is witnessing the movie. It is all there. And the same thing, curiously, has been said in the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, you think you are going to kill who are supposed to be your enemies, your friends and relatives, even your preceptors. That is why you don't want to fight. But he says, as time, I have already killed them. You will only be the apparent instrument for their death. Because the destiny is that they will be killed through a body-mind organism called Arjuna. I have already killed them. So whatever is going to happen in the future, in the movie, is already there. That is my concept.
There is an instrument being used.
So, which instrument will be used by the source? For what purpose? Only he knows. He used a body-mind organism called Albert Einstein for the theory of relativity. He used the instrument called Hitler to destroy millions of Jews. He used a body-mind organism called Jesus Christ for that particular purpose. He used a body-mind organism called Mother Teresa for the work that was done. And he is also using certain number of psychopathic organisms to do whatever the psychopathic organisms are destined to do.
Well, wouldn't you call that tactics?
Tactics?
Because it is a mechanics that's been used.
Tactics is for a certain goal, and the source has no goal. Source has no goal. It has done it. It's there. The movie is there.
Well, this is a confusion for me, because you see, when you say source is creating certain body minds for certain actions to come about,
yes,
there seems to be a goal there.
No, that is part of what is already there.
Yeah, but again, you're weaving in between two perspectives, you see.
No,
The perspective of everything being already there.
In this movie, all I'm saying, Philip, is in this movie, something leads to something. As we see it, something has led to something. A leads to B, B leads to C, C leads to D, and ultimately leads to Z. What I'm saying is, what was to happen to Z, all the previous ones, beginning with A, had to be there.
Right.
So the Z has already happened.
Yeah, in a way, yes.
Z has already happened.
But as you say,
And the
there's...
earlier are only, as you say, parts of the mechanism.
So it is a mechanism.
Of course, mechanism is there.
Instruments are being used.
Sure. Have been used.
Have, okay.
Have been used.
Have been used.
That,
So in that process, I mean, you know, to go back to what was said before, in that process, you see, of going from A to Z, it seems that something has been slightly altered, only in the process, not in the general...
nothing has to be altered. The Z has already happened. And for Z to happen, all the earlier, beginning from A, had to be done, and they were there. But we see only, we don't see Z, which is way ahead. Mm-hmm. We only see A leading to B, B leading to C.
Right.
So we say A led to B, and B led to C.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, because C had to happen, B had to happen. And because B had to happen, A had to happen. Mm. So the cause and effect, cause is not leading to effect, the effect had to be there, for the cause had to be created.
Right. Yes, yes.
For the effect to be there, the cause had to be created. And God sees the whole thing as one. Not one A leading to B, but the whole series. That is the concept. It's all there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Ramesh, is it correct that since everything is the will of God, whatever happens, anywhere, anytime, and particularly whatever thought you may have and your reaction to that thought, any emotion and any reaction, since all of this is inevitable, isn't the message accept this, relax, and go with the flow, so to speak?
Indeed. What I would say is, therefore, relax. Enjoy your life as it happens, including the joys and the unhappiness. That is all you can do, really. Enjoy your life as it happens. And as it happens will include both good and bad, happiness and unhappiness, to the extent that this body-mind is destined.
Thank you.
Exactly to the extent that this body-mind organism is destined.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question is...
You want to speak in German?
Yeah.
Do that. But you hold it this way.
Like this? No.
Ah.
No, I got it.
Good.
I try to say it in English.
All right.
Is it also part of the program that the mind goes on arguing and arguing, even if the final understanding has happened?
Yes.
It is like, it goes on like a ball you have thrown and...
In other words, the programming is made for that kind of thing to happen.
Yes.
And for the delay and the length of time and the process and the misery associated with it is all part of the destiny of that body-mind organism. Therefore, I say, what I say sometimes percolates through the intellect down to the heart. Sometimes it goes straight to the heart.
So it makes so easy.
I beg pardon?
It makes so easy then.
It's so easy or difficult depending on the destiny.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Ich möchte gerne eine Frage in Deutsch stellen.
I would like to ask a question in German.
Of course.
Und zwar zum Lehrer-Schüler-Verhältnis. Wie wichtig ist die Liebe des Schülers zum Meister oder zum Lehrer und kann Gnade nur durch den Lehrer, in diesem Fall dann dem Guru, geschehen.
He's asking whether grace can only happen through the guru to the disciple. Therefore, that relationship, that the love of the disciple to the guru is the decisive thing.
Yes, but even that is the destiny of the body-mind organisms connected with the guru and the disciple. It is the destiny of a guru to have a particular disciple. It is the destiny of a particular disciple to have a particular guru at a particular time.
Könnten Sie das nochmal übersetzen?
Ja, Ramesh sagt, dass auch dieses Verhältnis Guru-Disciple, also Lehrer-Schüler, dass das bestimmt ist, vorbestimmt ist. Auch das ist in der Programmierung drin.
Ich stelle nochmal dann eine kurze Nachfrage betreffend der Liebe des Schülers zum Guru. Und jetzt meine persönliche Erfahrung betreffend in der Zeit hier.
He wants to add something concerning his experiences while taking part in these 3 seminars.
Yes, sure.
Ich habe eigentlich alles, aber ich vermisse eine intensivere Beziehung auf der Ebene des Herzens
He says
zu Ramesh.
he got everything, but he is missing a more intense relationship to you on the level of heart.
That's it. You see, whether that will happen at all, and if it is to happen, when it will happen, is a matter of the destiny of this body-mind organism and the destiny of this body-mind organism. You see, the whole point is that even the disciple may be forcibly led to the Guru. I'll tell you what happened to my Guru, Nisargadatty Maharadje. He said, the word he used is a peculiarly Hindu word. He used the word pinda, meaning the essence of the being. That is not how the word is technically used, but he used the word pinda as the essence of his being. And he says, my pinda, that means the essence of my being, is bhakti. So he said, according to his usual routine, he would work in his bidi shop. When the shop was closed, he would go to a temple quite close by at a time when the bhajan was being sung for half an hour. So he added that he had a good singing voice. So he, along with the other devotees, would sing bhajans for the half hour, come back home, have his meal and go to bed, perfectly contented. He was not concerned with jnana. That's all he did. Half an hour's bhajan was enough for him. Then a friend of his had a guru, and this friend of his was most concerned that Nisargadatty Maharadje should go to his guru. So once he had been telling him, come with me, and he was not in Bombay. So next time when the guru came to Bombay, this friend of his practically dragged Maharaj to his guru. And he adds, Maharaj adds, he said even the routine flowers or fruits that had to be taken when someone went to a knowledgeable person, a sage, he was supposed to take some flowers and fruits. He said, even those were purchased by my friend. Even those I didn't buy. And yet, he said, the very first time I listened to the Guru, saying the same, there is only the source, the only one from which everything, he said, it went straight to my heart. You see, one who was not concerned with this knowledge of Advaita, goes because he's forced to go, and suddenly what is said goes straight to his heart. You see, how can you explain it? There is no question of explaining. You see. That was the destiny of that body-mind organism, to be converted from bhakti to jnana. And normally, what I would say is, the bhakti and the jnana go together. But in Maharaj's case, apparently, from what he did sing his bhajans, but he said he sang his bhajans because his guru asked him to. Once the story goes, there is a Shiva temple, and once, after the understanding had happened, Nisargadatta Maharaj and 3 or 4 of these people climbed up and went to the Shiva temple at the top. And there was the Shiva Linga, you see. And the hypocrisy is always there. So some of them who went with Maharaj said, how sacred this is. The Shiva, the Linga is so sacred. And kept on these same words, you see. So Maharaj couldn't bear it. So Maharaj said, yes, it is sacred enough for me to piss on. So there is this contradiction. But it's there.
Da brauche ich noch mal eine kurze Übersetzung, zumindest nicht des letzten Parts, sondern aber vielleicht könnten Sie das zusammenfassen.
Wieder.
Perhaps you'll translate it, Mark, for those who don't know German.
Well, I just gave a short account how Maharaj came to his teacher. As I said before. I just gave a short
I understand, yes.
abbreviation
Yes.
of
You hadn't translated
was
it
said.
earlier, you translated
Right,
it.
right. And then told him that even this love to the guru, it's something that the disciple cannot do by himself. It's if it's destined to happen, then this love will be there, will come.
There's a story of Lord Buddha and his favorite disciple called Ananda or something, I'm not sure. And because they thought that Ananda was Lord Buddha's favorite, that is chosen as a favorite, there was always some grumbling about it. So once what happened was, Lord Buddha and his group were crossing a stream. So Buddha asked Ananda to do something, gave him some work to do at one end, and the others crossed over and waited for at the other end. So the others thought this is a good opportunity to talk to Buddha that it's not good to have a favorite. So they mentioned their problem. Lord Buddha listened to the complaint and then shouted with some urgency, as if there was some urgency, Ananda, twice or 3 times. Ananda heard it, noticed the urgency, and was in such a hurry to get to his guru, he walked across the stream. So his love for the guru made him walk across the stream. The others saw it, and there was no more grumbling. Yes. Yes.
Hello, Ramesh.
Yes.
Yesterday you have spoken about the principles, actually, and of the theory, and I have a question about these principles.
About what?
About the principles.
Principle,
Yeah.
yes.
You described actually that what we are is energy, potential energy in motion. This I am.
Yes.
And my question is that if this body-mind organism dies, this I am is going back to the potential energy, or it still remains as I am?
See, that is the difficulty of not understanding that consciousness or energy is the same. So whether the energy trapped in this body-mind organism becomes potential energy or activized energy doesn't mean anything. It's the same energy. So what does it matter if the energy trapped in this body after the death of this body goes to the activized energy or to the potential? It's the same energy. I would say it goes back to the activized energy from which it came into this body. But it still remains energy, universal energy, which was identified as in a particular body-mind, now becomes back again universal energy or impersonal energy.
The second question that I have is about this conditioning.
Yes.
I was thinking all these days about these conditionings that come from parents, school, and religion, and
Yes.
all this stuff.
Sure.
And my question is, this programming we have, every body-mind organism has a certain programming. Let's say for a certain body-mind organism is not truthful. The programming is so that it's not truthful. If the final understanding happens to this programming of not truthfulness remains. Not truthfulness.
Non-truthfulness?
Yes.
What do you mean by non-truthfulness?
For instance, that somebody lies. Not honestly, yeah. Not honestly.
A person is dishonest. Is that what you mean? Oh, your question then is, can a dishonest person or can self-realization happen in a body-mind organism that is programmed to be dishonest? That is your question, isn't it?
If the final understanding happens.
Yes, but that's my question.
Yes.
Will it happen?
No, that's not the question.
No, it's not a question. The question is if it happens.
Yes, but that is itself in doubt. If it happens, why should it happen? I mean, the source or God has created enough body-mind organisms with adequate programming for this enlightenment to happen. Why should enlightenment happen in a body-mind organism which is not programmed for the purpose? If it happens, what's the point of the if it happens?
What I asked is like this. Suppose that it's happened. For me, it can be happen, actually.
Yes.
Afterwards, this conditioning remains or not?
You see, now, basically what you are saying is, can conditioning change? That's your question. Conditioning is changing every minute, every day. What you are listening to now is nothing other than conditioning. What you are listening to now is nothing other than conditioning, which will affect the existing conditioning. You see? So what you are listening to now is an additional conditioning which keeps on altering the existing conditioning, making it the present conditioning at the moment.
So actually this conditioning is this theater role that we play every time.
And that conditioning, to what extent this conditioning of listening to what you are listening to will affect your existing conditioning will depend on the destiny of this body-mind organism and the will of God. I repeat, the conditioning that you are receiving now, to what extent it will affect or not affect the existing conditioning will depend on God's will and the destiny of this body-mind organism. That is why the listening produces various effects from 0 to 10, you see.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
Yes, you were telling this gentleman earlier on that he should make responsible decisions for other people in his life. At the same time, you were saying that everything that happens is God's will. In other words, the movie of his life has already been set by God. But by telling him that he can make a decision, isn't that the implication that the movie could change direction?
No, all it means is, quite frankly, you cannot not make a decision.
But the decision has already been made.
That's right. That is correct.
But then the whole thing is a joke.
It is a joke. Yes, you are quite right. The whole thing is a joke.
Oh, well, that's rather alarming, in fact.
You don't like jokes? You don't like jokes?
I mean, if a decision has to be made at the time the decision is being made, the experience is one of truly having a choice, but deep down it appears that there isn't a choice.
So, you're quite right. Deep down, you know that your decision is not going to make any difference to what is going to happen, what has already happened. But I repeat, that is not going to let you not make a decision. The energy inside this body-mind organism will continue to function. And if at the moment the energy is supposed to make a decision will be made. And the decision will be made according to the programming, which includes the environmental conditioning.
So you would say that decision occurs rather than I make a decision?
That is correct. Yes. That is exactly correct. A decision happens. But the ego thinks he is making a decision. Mm-hmm. That is quite correct. A decision happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. One brief...
Yes.
Maharaj used to tell people, be still. It's like, as if he was telling people, do this. For instance, be still. I mean, this is an impossible kind of suggestion, because at most I can keep my body still.
You see, just as I say, make a decision. If you want to make a decision, make a decision. And the basis of it being that apparently you are making a decision. Mm-hmm. So I'd say, make a decision. So Maharaj said, do it. The underlying principle being the doing of it by that body-mind organism will happen if it is supposed to happen. That doesn't prevent him from telling you, the individual, do it. The basic understanding is the doing of it will happen only if it is supposed to happen. But in talking, you have to use the active tense. Do it. But whether you will be able to do it or not in your control. Therefore, whether the doing of it will happen is entirely another matter. That doesn't prevent Maharaj from telling the reader, do it.
Okay, thank you.
But the underlying understanding is the doing may or may not happen according to the destinies.
I would...
Yes. If you don't mind standing up, it would...
Yes. I would very much like to know what you think about the beginning of the source. I mean, where do you put the Big Bang and the universe?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
I would like to know what you think about the beginning of the source.
The beginning of the?
Source.
Source.
Yes.
Now look, what do you mean by the source? The source is the one and without a second. The source cannot have another source. That is what I mean by source, and that is what I repeatedly say I mean when I use the word God. You see, if you tell a child something, God did this, and God made you, any intelligent child will say, who made God? You see, because the way it is explained, God is not the source. God is an all-powerful entity who holds your fate in His hands. But the source is the one without a second. Source is that which has nothing behind him. The source is one which does not have another source, in which case he wouldn't be the source. The source is that which does not have another source. Please.
Ein Erlebnis. Danke. Es gibt ein Erlebnis in meinem Leben mit IM. Warum war es meine individuelle Stimme, die ich gehört habe oder die gehört wurde? Es war ein Meditationserlebnis und ich erkannte, dass mein Leben nicht organisiert wird von der Person, die jetzt hier zu Ihnen spricht, sondern von diesem IM. Aber die Frage, die ich immer wieder habe, ist, warum war es meine individuelle Stimme? Ein Priester hat mir gesagt, das hätte mir der Teufel eingeredet. Ein Therapeut hat mir
Your question is why?
Warum war es meine individuelle Stimme, die gehört wurde?
Well, I'm not sure whether I got it rightly, so I will try. She said that she had, in meditation, she had an experience. So she heard somehow, how she call it, an individual voice, her individual voice. She was hearing, so she understood at that moment that it was not her making her own destiny, that it was something else that is doing the whole thing. But her difficulty is and was that she had the impression that it was a personal voice telling this. Her own individual voice saying this to her. So that's her difficulty, that it was her individual voice that told her this.
Which is the ego.
Yes.
Which is the ego. That is the ego.
Her individual voice telling I am. Because she said she had an I am experience. And her question is, why was this voice her voice telling her I am?
You see now, if that voice told her that she is God,
No.
what explanation can I give? If that voice which she says is her voice tells her that she is not what she thinks she is, but she is God.
I haven't the feeling that I am God.
So now this voice is telling you, what you are saying is this voice tells you what to do. Is that what you are saying? This voice tells you what to do?
No, this voice told her that it's not her doing things, it's the I am, right?
Ich habe einfach nur in dem Augenblick, vorher war eine Stille, eine Ruhe, die ich überhaupt nicht beschreiben kann, ein Zustand, wo nichts da war.
Yeah. She said there was in a state where there was no thinking, that was just peace.
Nothing,
quietness.
nothing.
And then?
Und dann war da ein riesengroßer Energiewirbel.
Then there was an immense storm of energy.
Und dann wurde die Stimme gehört aus dem Kosmos.
And then she heard the voice out from the cosmos.
Ja, und das hat mich sehr erschrocken. Ich hatte das Gefühl, da bin ich ewig zu Hause und ich wusste, das I am organisiert mein Leben und nicht ich, die ich jetzt hier spreche.
Then she was afraid while hearing that voice, and she understood that that it was this I am. It was not her having the control over things.
Ja.
And this to her was quite frightening, right?
Tatsache, dass es ihre eigene Stimme
Ja.
Yeah, we had the impression that this was her own voice saying this, and this to her was frightening.
Yes. Who was frightened?
Was ist?
Wer erschrak sich? Wer war
Who was frightened?
erschrocken? Wer war das?
Ja, ich natürlich, das Ego,
Ja,
das ist mir schon
the
klar.
Ego, she says.
That's right. So the second voice, which says, I'm afraid, is the ego.
Ja, das.
So the ego is afraid to be told that the one who is in charge of in control is the I am, which is the source in action. The ego doesn't like it. So the ego resisted this experience that has happened.
Kannst du das mal übersetzen?
Ja. Das Ego liebt es nicht, wenn es plötzlich hört und versteht, dass es nicht selber die Kontrolle hat, dass es dem ausgeliefert ist.
Das hat mir auch eine große Krise gemacht.
Ja. Drum, zuerst war dieses Ego nicht da, da war Stille. Und danach kam das Ego rein und erschrak sich.
Ja.
Ja, das ist so.
Ja, meine Frage ist trotzdem noch nicht, ich habe immer noch, warum ist es das nicht mal, ich bin immer davon ausgegangen, dass es eine neutrale Stimme sein müsste, dieses I am, und nicht meine individuelle Stimme.
Das war nicht die Stimme des I am.
Aha.
Das war das Ego dann. So she says she's still somehow disturbed that this voice was that it was her personal voice telling her these things.
Then why should anyone be afraid? If it was your own voice telling you whatever it was, who was afraid? Who was there to be afraid? It was your own voice telling you. So who was there to be afraid? The only one to be afraid was afraid of that other voice, the other experience.
Ja.
The ego is afraid of the experience of the I am.
Ja.
So the experience of the I am happens. Why, nobody can say, but it's happened in your case, and the ego resists it. Because that voice tells the ego that you have no control over the life.
Ja, genau das war
and that
die
is why
Erfahrung.
the ego is afraid. And the ego does not want that voice to tell you whatever it is saying. So the ego has resisted that experience.
Kannst du das nochmal übersetzen?
Ja. Es war das Ego, das dieser Erfahrung Widerstand leistete.
Ja.
Das Ego erschrak sich.
Ja, ich war entsetzt, natürlich.
Ja. Das ist normal.
Jetzt wiedergeben. Bitte?
Ja, ich habe eine Frage, und zwar habe ich eigentlich mein ganzes Leben bisher mich sehr bemüht oder sehr gekämpft oder angestrengt, meine Bestimmung zu finden, und hatte immer sehr viele Sorge und Ängste, an ihr vorbeizugehen.
She says that all her life she was struggling hard and trying to find the right way.
The destiny, my destiny.
To find her destiny.
Yes. To find her destiny.
She was anxious not to follow her destiny.
But now I think it's not possible. I only can live my destiny. That's right.
Now she understands that there is no need to be anxious.
Not
She
at
understands that she can't miss her destiny.
You see, whatever is to happen to this body-mind organism tomorrow or a year later no power on earth can change it. So accepting that may not be easy. So accepting that no power on earth can change my destiny can be reassuring in one way. That is, you need not feel that you should do something about it. You can't. So that is a relief. But I'm not saying that if this body-mind organism is programmed to worry, I'm not saying that occasionally what will happen next year, the worry may not come up. The thought, what will happen to me next year, is the input. The brain reacts to that input and worry may come up. If that body-mind organism is programmed for the worry to happen, worry may come. But the understanding is that no one can change anything in your destiny. The relieving part of it is, if you are going to have 1,000,000 marks next year, no power on earth can stop it. You will have it.